Welcome back to Close Up. The Republican Senate primary to take on Senator Jeanne Shaheen has the potential to be a barn burner. But there's uncertainty hanging over the race as the field is not yet set and could see a big name addition. One candidate in the race with an ample self-funded war chest of campaign funds is Corky Messner. Mr. Messner, thanks for joining us on Close Up.
Thank you, Adam, for having me.
Appreciate your time. So this is likely the first time a lot of voters are going to hear from you. So tell us a little bit about who you are, why you're running for Senate, but to start, what kind of a Republican are you?
I'm a conservative Republican. I grew up in Altoona, Pennsylvania in a blue-collar family and went off to West Point, graduated from West Point, became an Army Airborne Ranger, infantryman, led soldiers in Western Europe during the Cold War. After I served, I became a lawyer and started my own business. And it was a small business at first, and I've grown it into a pretty big business. So for me, I feel like I've lived the American dream, and that's individual liberty and economic freedom. And I'm running to preserve the American dream for everybody in New Hampshire and our kids and our kids' kids. And that's what makes America great.
Yeah, you mentioned your business success. Your primary law firm was in Denver. You have them nationwide. What's your connection to New Hampshire?
I first came to New Hampshire 40 years ago when I was a West Point cadet to help a buddy of mine close down his aunt's camp at the base of Mount Monadnock. And I came here, and I was young. I was a blue-collar kid. I didn't know much of anything. And I fell in love with New Hampshire, and I had a dream. I said, I'm going to come back here someday. 13 years ago, I bought a home here.
And essentially, you've been living here since, or?
Mostly the last several years, and I got involved with my community in Wolfboro with the Wentworth Watershed Association, conserving Lake Wentworth, and the watershed around Lake Wentworth. Got involved there 8 or 9 years ago.
Taking on Senator Shaheen is a formidable challenge. She's won statewide elections in 3 different decades now, is basically a household name in New Hampshire. So what's your strategy to unseat her if you're the nominee?
Yeah, well, I've had a lot of challenges in my life. From my background, going to West Point and building a business. And my strategy is to get out and meet the people of New Hampshire and spread my message and focus on the economy and the good things that have happened in the economy since President Trump's been elected. The tax cuts, which Jeanne Shaheen voted against, the government deregulation, and to continue those pro-growth small business economic packages, especially for small businesses. And we know there's a lot of small businesses in New Hampshire, and that Tax Reform Act had a lot of benefits for small businesses, and Jeanne Shaheen voted against that.
You mentioned that vote there. Are there any other issues you would take on Senator Shaheen in a race head-to-head? Sure.
I think one is national security, and I see border security as part of national security, securing the southern border. And I also see that as contributing to the opioid crisis here in New Hampshire. I think a lot of the drugs that come across the southern border end up here as they do in other places. So we've got to secure the southern border to stop the flow of drugs.
How about the opioid crisis here in New Hampshire? Is there anything you do differently as Senator Shaheen in terms of trying to bring resources to this state?
Well, I think Governor Sununu's doing a great job in the state with the programs he put in place for the prevention, treatment, and recovery. And I think to support him with the funding from the federal government that he needs.
A big litmus test for Republicans these days is President Donald Trump. If you're in the U.S. Senate, are there any issues you would see yourself opposing President Trump on by chance or clashing at all?
I'm policy over personality. All right, I think many of his policies have been really good. His economic policies, the deregulation, rebuilding the military has been really good. So I'm going to focus on policy. And if there's a policy that I disagree with him about, I'll talk to him about it.
How about this impeachment inquiry in the House? If you were in the Senate and the House does vote to impeach, what would you see your role as? Obviously, you'd be essentially a juror in the Senate. How do you think you'd vote on that?
Well, yes, I would be a juror, and as a juror, I would want to hear all the facts. I've been reading the public information so far, the transcript from the phone call, the whistleblower report. I think what's going on with the impeachment inquiry, which really is oversight, because there's been no impeachment vote, and that being done in secret, and the misrepresentations from the Democrats, especially Adam Schiff, I think is really bad. It undermines the system in this country. It undermines the Constitution. That there ought to be more transparency about this, and I don't think it's a good thing for the country.
What about the underlying conduct? Take President Trump out of the equation. Should any president be asking in a phone call to a foreign leader, suggesting even an investigation of political opponents?
Well, you know, I don't view it that way. I think Joe Biden running for office does not grant him immunity for his actions as vice president. I think on its face, there was a conflict of interest there. Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma at the time when Vice President Biden had primary responsibility for Ukraine is a conflict of interest. It's very clear. Now, he should have said, son, I really need you to get off the board. And if Hunter Biden would have said no, then Vice President Biden should have went to President Obama and said, I need to recuse myself from all things Ukraine because my son's on this board.
One of President Trump's closest allies is looking at getting into this Senate race, and some argue it's effectively putting kind of a cloud over it, whether he decides or not at this time, because we don't know what the field's going to be. So what is your argument in terms of being a more effective potential nominee over someone who is so close to President Trump when that matters so much to Republicans these days?
Well, first of all, I'm focused on beating Jeanne Shaheen, and I will beat Jeanne Shaheen. You know, my record of getting things done in my life and accomplishing things in my life and success distinguishes me from anybody who might run in this race.
And getting back to your career in law, obviously you're a major firm, huge, lots of different cases. Is there anything that your firms have done, cases they've taken on that you wish they hadn't done? Any regrets, I guess? Oh,
I'm sure there's some. There's been so many over the last 25 years that we've been involved with, and I'm sure there's a small set that I wish we hadn't done. I can't remember them. There's, you know.
In terms of one you're most proud of?
Well, our most significant achievement is we started representing Chipotle Mexican Grill when they were a very small company, had 1 or 2 restaurants, and we helped the founder of Chipotle grow that company into what it is today, over 2,600 restaurants all over the country, and we continue to help them.
All right. Corky Mizner, we'll see you out there on the trail.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.